Have you ever really thought about what happens, at a microscopic level, when a nerve gets injured? It's not just a simple break. Oh no, it is a full-blown high-stakes drama that unfolds inside a single cell. So let's get right into it and explore this incredible story of cellular crisis.
So yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? We're going to play the role of cellular detectives here, piecing together the timeline from the very first moment something goes wrong. And trust me, it's a cascade of events that happens with, just breathtaking speed.
All right, first things first, let's get our main term down, axonomy. Just think of a nerve cell, a neuron, as a kind of command center with this super long communication cable attached to it. Well, that cable is the axon, and axonomy, that's just a scientific term for when that cable gets cut. Simple as that. Okay, so the cut has been made. A line is severed. What happens in those first few milliseconds? Let's zoom right in on the immediate and chaotic aftermath. The very first thing to go, communication. It's instant. All those electrical signals that were zipping down the axon just stop, dead in their tracks. It's exactly like you're on a phone call and the line just goes dead mid-sentence. That connection is completely broken, total silence.
So now, let's shift our focus to the physical crime scene itself. We're talking about the two raw ends of the axon that were just violently ripped apart.
Okay, so three things happen almost at the same time. First, the two ends snap away from each other, kind of like a broken rubber band. Then, and this is pretty incredible, the cell membrane just scrambles to seal up those open wounds. It's trying to stop all its guts from leaking out. But then, something weird happens. Both ends start to swell up. The part still attached to the cell and the part that's now an orphan, they both get puffy. So why does that happen? Well, here's why. That axon is basically a super busy highway with proteins and all sorts of materials being shipped up and down 24/7. When you cut it, you've created a massive, impassable roadblock. Everything that was heading toward the cut just piles up. It creates this microscopic traffic jam, and that pileup is what we see as swelling. So the highway is blocked. Now let's follow that severed line all the way down to its very end, to the synapse, the place where the neuron was supposed to deliver its message. That whole area is now completely cut off, isolated. This terminal end, it's like a remote outpost that just lost all radio contact with its command center. Without that constant supply of energy, of materials from the cell body, it just can't function. It's starved. So it starts to break down. It just begins to degenerate. And here's where things get really fascinating. Look at the role of these other cells called astroglia. They're like the nervous system support crew. Before the injury, you can see their job is to basically hug the synapse and make sure the connection is strong and stable. But after the injury, whoa, they completely change jobs. They become the emergency response team. They literally move in, physically pull the dying terminal away from its target, and quarantine the entire damaged area. Amazing, right? So, we've seen the very tip of the axon fall apart. But what about the rest of that long cable that got cut off? Well, that entire segment is now on a timer. It's about to undergo what you could call a controlled demolition. This whole process has a name. It's called Wallerian degeneration. And listen, the key word there is active. The orphaned part of the axon doesn't just passively rot away like old food. No way. It actually executes a pre-programmed self-destruct sequence to take itself apart in a nice, orderly fashion. So what does this self-destruct sequence look like? Well, the axon itself starts to break into little pieces. Its protective insulation, that's the myelin sheath, it also crumbles into debris. And this is a huge deal, because this myelin debris is really hard for the body to clean up, especially in the brain and spinal cord. It actually stops new nerves from growing, which is a big reason why it's so much harder to recover from an injury to your central nervous system than, say, a nerve in your arm. So far, we've only been looking downstream from the cut. Let's travel back now to the other side of the injury and see how the main headquarters, the nerve cell body itself, is reacting to the news that its axon has been chopped off. This reaction is called chromatolysis, and it is a massive, all-hands-on-deck, DEFCON 1 kind of emergency response. The cell body completely changes its entire game plan. It shifts its top priority away from sending signals to a new, all-consuming mission: survival and hopefully repair. And you can literally see this incredible transformation. The whole cell body swells up. The nucleus, that dark circle in the middle, it gets pushed all the way over to the side. It becomes eccentric. And see those little dark flecks, the Nissl bodies? Those are the cell's protein factories. They basically get broken down and scattered. The entire factory is retooling its assembly line, switching from making stuff for communication to making stuff for a massive repair job. So let's just quickly recap the 4-act drama we just saw. First, you get an instant communication blackout, then a physical crisis right at the cut with sealing and swallowing. After that, you get the controlled demolition of the orphaned axon, that's Wallerian degeneration, and finally a complete reorganization of the command center, chromatolysis, as it gets ready for whatever comes next. So there you have it. We've walked through the violent but really intricate story of how a single neuron breaks down. And all this chaos and self-destruction, it leads us to the biggest question of all. Is there any hope for recovery? Can this line of communication ever actually be rebuilt?